Once upon a time, in the thriving kingdom of Alaoma, Ezenamdi ruled with wisdom and kindness. He had two sons, the eldest, Chidi, who was beloved by all for his gentle nature, and the younger, Obinna, who harbored an insatiable ambition. One fateful day, when Chidi was just a child, he wandered beyond the palace gates, lured by the enchanting sounds of the forest. His curiosity led him deeper and deeper into the lush, green expanse until he found himself lost in the heart of the evil forest. The forest was thick with towering trees, their canopy blotting out the sun and casting airy shadows on the forest floors. The calls of birds and the rustling of leaves created a symphony that captivated Chidi, drawing him further away from the familiar paths. As the hours passed, the sun began to set, and the forest grew darker and more forbidding. Night fell, and with it came the chilling cries of nocturnal creatures, the hooting of owls, and the howls of distant animals. And the rustling of unseen creatures in the underbush left Chidi frightened and alone. He huddled under a large tree, its roots forming a natural shelter, and tried to stay warm. The darkness seemed to press in on him, and he felt the cold, biting fear of being truly alone for the first time in his young life. Ezenamdi, a tall and regal figure adorned in traditional Igbo attire with intricate pattern woven into rich, vibrant fabric, was stricken with fear when he discovered that his beloved son Chidi was missing. His usually calm and composed face was now etched with deep lines of worry and desperation. His eyes, normally warm and full of wisdom, were now filled with a frantic urgency as he called out his son. The entire palace was thrown into a state of chaos. The once serene and orderly hall echoed with the hurried footsteps and anxious whispers of servants and guards. Ezenamdi, not one to remain idle, immediately organized a search party. He summoned his most trusted warriors, their muzzles rippling under their traditional attire, each one armed with weapons and torches. They scoured the palace ground first, searching every room, courtyard, and garden. The king himself led the charge, his royal mantle billowing behind him as he moved with purpose. He called out Chidi's name, his deep voice booming through the corridors and open space, but there was no response. The search then extended beyond the palace gates into the bustling streets of Alaoma. Ezenamdi's regal presence commanded attention as he led his entourage through the marketplace, past rows of traders selling their wares, and through clusters of concerned villagers who quickly spread the word of the missing prince. The villagers joined the search, forming a large, determined group that combed every inch of the kingdom. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows and a golden hue over the land, Ezenamdi's anxiety grew. He ordered the search to move into the surrounding forest, dense and intimidating woodland that frangled the kingdom. The forest, known to be treacherous and filled with hidden dangers, seemed even more foreboding as night approached. The king's warrior lit torches, the flames flickering and casting an orange glow that barely penetrated the thick darkness of the forest. Ezenamdi's heart pounded in his chest, and he plunged into the forest. Driven by the desperate hope of finding his son, the calls of nocturnal animal and the rustling of unseen creature filled the air, creating a haunting symphony that can deepen the king's fear. The search party moved methodically, calling out Chidi's name and listening intently for any response. They encountered many obstacles, tangled undergrowth, hidden ravens, and the ever-present threat of wild animals. But Ezenamdi was undeterred. His determination and love for his son pushed him forward. Hours passed and the moon rose high in the sky, casting a pale light over the forest. The king's voice grew hoarse from shouting, and his body, though strong, began to show signs of exhaustion. Yet he refused to give up. He knelt on the forest floor, his royal robes now dirtied and torn, and prayed fervently to the gods for the safe return of his son. Just as the first light of dawn began to break through the canopy, casting a gentle glow over the forest, one of the warriors let out a shout. Izenamdi rushed to the source of the commotion, his heart in his throat. The warrior pointed to a small footprint, barely visible in the soft earth. It was the footprint of a child, and it gave the king renewed sense of hope. With this new lead, Ezenamdi and his search party continued deeper into the forest, their spirits lifted by the promise of finding Chidi. The king's eyes scanned the surroundings with renewed vigor, every rustle of leaf and snap of twig making his heart race. But as they followed the trail, it became evident that Chidi had ventured far beyond what was safe. The footprint eventually led to a clearing, but there the train went cold. Ezenamdi's hope began to wane, and he fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He had done everything in his power, but the forest had swallowed his son whole. The search continued for days, with Ezenamdi never leaving the forefront, but Chidi was nowhere to be found. The king returned to the palace, a shadow of its former self, his heart heavy with grief. The kingdom mourned with him, the loss of his beloved prince casting a long shadow over Alaoma. Meanwhile, miles away, a childless couple named Nkemu and Ifeoma were traveling through the region. They were traders known for their kindness and generosity, but their hearts ached with the absence of a child. That night, as they made camp at the edge of the forest, they heard the faint, desperate cries of a child. Concerned and curious, they ventured into the forest, guided by the sound of Chidi's sob. It took them some time, but eventually they found Chidi, shivering and exhausted under the tree. His face was streaked with tears, and his clothes were torn from the branches and thorns he had encountered. Nkema and Ifeoma's heart went out to the lost child. They gently gathered him up, soothing his fears with soft words and warm blankets. Chidi, too tired and scared to protest, clung to them, feeling a sense of safety he didn't feel since he wandered off. The couple took Chidi with them, deciding to raise him as their own. They named him Uchenna, which means God's will in their native tongue, believing that finding him was a divine blessing. Nkem and Ifeoma provided him with a loving home, teaching him their values and traditions. They lived a modest life, but it was rich with love and care. As Uchenna grew, it became evident that he possessed a remarkable talent for music. He could create melodies with everything he touches, from simple sticks to the pots and pans in their home. His natural rhythm and musicality were undeniable. Nkem and Ifeoma recognized his gift, nurtured his talent. They found a local musician to teach him the basics of drumming and rhythm, and Uchenna's skill flourished under his guidance. By the time he was a teenager, Uchenna's reputation as a talented drummer had spread far and wide. He was invited to perform at festivals and ceremonies in nearby villages. His music had a way to touch people's hearts, invoking deep emotions and bringing communities together. Uchenna's performances were not just about entertainment, they were a celebration of life and culture, and he poured his heart and soul into every beat. Uchenna's travel took him to many places, and he experienced a world far beyond the humble village where he was raised. He met people from different backgrounds, learned new musical styles, and honed his craft. Despite the adulation he received, he remained humble and kind, always remembering the lessons of love and generosity taught by Nkem and Ifeoma. One day, after years had passed, Uchenna's travel brought him to Alaoma, Unbeknownst to him, this was the kingdom of his birth. As his popularity had grown to the point of rulers wanting him to perform at their royal events, he was invited by the arrogant Obinna to come beforehand to prepare for his coronation. When he arrived, he saw how Obinna treated people and it made him sad. Uchenna, with his kind heart and sense of justice, could not understand why a ruler would act so harshly. As he mingled with the palace staff, Uchenna's curiosity led him to ask around about the current state of the kingdom and its history. A kind mate, seeing his genuine concern, shared the tragic tale of Obinna and the late King Ezenamdi. The kingdom of Alaoma was once a land of peace and prosperity under the rule of Ezenamdi, the maid began. The king was loved by all, always seeking advice from his council of chiefs and ruling with wisdom and kindness. But everything changed when the king fell ill. There was a sacred ritual that needed to be performed by the second cockcrow to save the king's life. The responsibility fell on Obinna, the king's younger son, who was next in line for the throne since the eldest son Chidi had been lost as a child. Uchenna listened intently, his hand pounding as the maid continued. Obinna, driven by ambition and impatience, pretended to agree to perform the ritual, but instead he went to his concubine's house in the next village, Nkwere, and slept until the following morning. When he returned, it was too late. Ezenandi had passed away, and the elders, angered by Obinna's neglect, suspended his coronation and imposed a fine before the king's burial. Although Obinna paid the fine and assumed the role of leader, he ruled with a heavy hand and refused to heed any advice from the council of chiefs. His action, driven by selfish desires, brought much suffering to the people of Alaoma. The maid's eye filled with sorrow as she recounted this event. Obinna's coronation is meant to solidify his rule, but many fear what his official reign will bring. He has ignored the traditions and wisdom that guided his fathers, and the kingdom suffers because of it. Uchenna was deeply moved by the story. Although he didn't realize he was the king's lost son, he felt a strong urge to help the people. He decided to stay and see if there is any way he could assist them in their time of need. As the day of coronation approached, Uchenna prepared his drums, determined to use his music to make a difference. On the day of the coronation, the entire town of Alaoma gathered at the market square, the traditional venue for the final celebration of past kings. The chiefs and the coronation family went to the palace to dress Obinna for the ceremony. It was customary for the king to fast until after the coronation, but Obinna insisted on eating the delicious bitterleaf soup, ofe onugbu, prepared by his wife. Despite numerous attempts to dissuade him, he ignored their advice and ate the soup, leaving a conspicuous fragment of bitterleaf hanging on his moustache. Unaware of the bitterleaf fragment, Obinna was crowned in the palace and proceeded to the market square to celebrate. He danced with his family, chiefs, and friends. Uchenna, now performing his drums, noticed the fragment of bitterleaf. Remembering the lessons his adoptive parents had taught him about respect and the importance of advice, he knew he had to act. Through his talking drum, he conveyed the message. The king who doesn't listen to advice. There is a fragment of bitter leaf on your mustache. The redeeming message was clear to everyone present. Obinna, touching his mustache, found the fragment and was furious. The crowd fell silent, watching as the realization dawned on him. After the celebration, Obinna summoned the chiefs, elders, wives, and friends, demanding to know why they had not informed him of the fragment. They replied in unison that he had never listened to any advice or correction, so they could not tell him. As the tension grew, the oracle, often consulted in times of great need, intervened. With a voice that seemed to come from the very earth itself, the oracle revealed Obinna's deceit and negligence in performing the ritual that could have saved Ezenamdi. The oracle's voice then took on a softer tone as it turned to Uchenna. "Drummer, step forward," the oracle commanded. Uchenna's heart pounding obeyed. Long ago, the eldest son of Ezenamdi, the true heir to the throne, was lost in the evil forest. The oracle continued. He was found by kind travelers and raised with love and music. Today he had returned to his rightful place. The crowd gasped as the oracle pointed to Uchenna. "This is Chidi, the lost prince of Alaoma." Stunned, Chidi looked around at the people, then at Obinna, who stood in shock and silence. The oracle's revelation caused an uproar among the gathered townspeople. Recognizing Chidi as the true heir, the council of chiefs decided to crown him king. Obinna, disgraced and regretful, was stripped of his claim of the throne. Chidi, still in a state of disbelief, was dressed in the royal garment and led to the throne. The people of Alaoma, their hearts filled with hope and joy, watched as Chidi was crowned king. With his musical wisdom and guidance of the council of chiefs, Chidi ruled Alaoma just and compassionately. He took every piece of advice to heart, valuing the wisdom of elders. Under his reign, peace and harmony were restored to the land, and the legacy of Ezenamdi lived on through the just and noble King Chidi. The kingdom of Alaoma thrived once more, united under a ruler who understands the true meaning of leadership and the importance of listening to those who came before him. The story of Chidi, the lost prince of Alaoma, teaches us valuable lessons about the importance of humility, listening to wise counsel, and the power of compassion. Through Chidi's journey, we learn that true leadership is not about wielding power, but about serving others and being open to guidance. Obinna's downfall served as a reminder that arrogance and neglecting the wisdom of others can lead to one's undoing. Thank you for joining us in the journey through the rich tapestry of African folklore. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales from across the African continent, please like this video and subscribe to our channel at African Folktales by Naichi. Stay tuned for more stories that inspire, teach, and entertain. Until next time, may the wisdom of our ancestors guide you.